Sitting at the bonfire with Jimmy was a reprieve from dealing with sick coworkers and starting antidepressants. We had the campground to ourselves, the frantic summer months at Dot Mill Resort coming to an end. All campsites were open, and we isolated ourselves in a gap between some trees at the far end. Jimmy chucked spare wood from his truck to the weakened fire pit, then sat on his cooler, taking a long swig from his beer. As soon as the tents were up, he pinched a cigarette in his lips, kicked off his shoes and socks, and wiggled his toes in the wet grass while I nursed the fire with a stick. "A full moon tonight," he said. He handed me the bass guitar and walked to his truck, vanishing in the dark. "Maybe the crazies will be out." "God, I hope not," I mumbled. All around us, pure darkness like a pocket we've slipped in, carried away from the hectic day-to-day we've grown used to. No street lamps, passing headlights, computer screens, or phones. This night was the precursor to the long vacation here in only a few weeks. But I was only thinking about the medication I had to take. Hello, welcome to River Pretty with myself and John, day 2. Earlier this year, I laid out a blueprint to my therapist of desired changes to my life, and one of the biggest was simply spending more time outside. The River Pretty Writers Retreat, a getaway deep in the woods for writers, did that for me. Each morning I would wake up and watch the sunrise from the second floor of the Cotton Gin Inn. I'd brew coffee on a kerosene stove, zip up my jacket, read a page or two, and then take my medication. I never thought I'd eventually find myself popping pills daily to fend off the depression I have had for so long. For years, I carried the familiar weight that anchored me down after long work days, and it never got any better. Rarely would I experience highs, enough sleep, energy, alertness, no pain. But even then, I expected a return to normalcy. "God, is this the new normal?" I asked my therapist. As I expounded upon my past in the last session, I concluded that depression is the normal state of things. Because of COVID, mental health has changed for so many, including myself. Working from home, not being able to step into public like before has all but changed the way I think. Fear consumed me the closer I stood to someone I didn't know because they could make me sick. Distance from my friends led to the lack of socializing I needed. For 2 years I adapted with the world and fell further into the depression I carried for years, never really acknowledging it. Many friends have said they put a smile on as they carry their own weight of uncertainty through the day, that they can't seem to get out of the prison they're in. I understood. I saw my apartment as my prison. A small, bland place, lifeless, lacking things like curtains and color. Money couldn't get me out of the dark hole of memories over the past 3 years because I couldn't find a better paying job. No one hired or didn't pay enough. This alone drove many to suffering since jobs were lost and, in turn, hard to get. When your way of life is uprooted with the masses, collective suffering happens, and it lingers a long time. The trees, however, stood powerful, their roots gripping deep in the Ozark soil. I wished to stand strong like a mighty oak. Instead, I turned my thoughts into fiction and poetry. Being at the writing retreat for a week opened opportunities to draft poems and to journal before I laid down for the night. Already it was more cathartic than expected. Throughout the week, I sat with friends, caught up on drama, played guitar, and listened to other writers belt out songs from the second floor porch. For hours I paid attention to the natural presence of the world, the sounds we should all know, but don't. Branches swaying with the breeze. What does that sound like? It sounds unlike the chaos back home, where construction workers loudly rebuild the road outside my home, when the train flies through my parents' backyard every morning and late at night, and where the many voices of disgruntled shoppers at Walmart refused to wear masks at the height of the pandemic. While some preferred the silence of their homes to the songs of birds, I didn't. For 2 years, most of my days were spent inside working from home. Panic welled up in me when I stepped past my front door because I didn't want to breathe someone else's air. But the air cutting through thousands of trees was like a smooth drink of fine oak-infused wine. When one desires some shape of solace, one must find it. But conversations with a therapist helped. It was quite remarkable to recall a lot of my life I hadn't thought about in years. And when I brought up the topic of camping, she seemed surprised. "Are you going by yourself?" she asked. "With a friend," I said. "Last time you talked about having a plan. Do you have one now?" "Well, I'm kind of making it up as I go. That's what I'm used to." "Why are you used to it?" "I guess it's how I've always been. Planning is something I do in the moment. And if I'm only enjoying spontaneity, then so be it." I stared out the window, admiring the lake in the distance. People jogged around it, and others conversed on benches near the shore. But that was all I could do. Observe. Watch the water ripple. The trees dance with the rhythm of the wind. I pictured camping at the resort, hidden by the trees, and then I remembered the woods of my old home. "I walked by myself," I said. "I'd pick pine cones and bat them against trees, and then I'd imagine myself dueling a knight from one of my fantasy books. During winter, my grandpa cut down some of the trees and burned them by his shed. At night, I could see his silhouette cut out against the fire, him poking at it with a stick. For days, we'd wear rubber boots to walk to the bus since the water was so high." There was a long silence, and then my therapist asked, "Why camping?" I continued watching the lake outside. Truthfully, I never liked camping. My parents couldn't get me to do it. Anything related to being in the elements, I fought against. But now, it's different. It reminded me of the crackled, burning wood in my grandpa's wood stove, the river echoing through trees, and sitting at bonfires with friends and family. It reminded me of home.